this Bible rather than a paper Bible, which I always have. Just open 2 Corinthians.
I don't know, maybe Nina can.
2 Corinthians 1. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God, and Timothy, our brother, to the church of God, which is at Corinth, with all the saints who are in all Achaia. Grace to you and peace from God, our Father, and the Lord Jesus Christ. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort. So who's the God of all comfort?
Our Lord.
Our God, who comforts us in all our tribulation. Definitely, depression is a tribulation. Who comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble. So if I'm comforted, what do I do?
Comfort
I
others.
comfort. To comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. Okay? So he's given us a summary of what to do if we have depression, or if others we know have depression, and how to treat them. Okay? That's how it is. So really there is no need for me to do anything. I'll just give you a little bit of practical stuff. So I might need to divide you into groups. Okay? So when I say into groups, maybe groups of 10 or 15. There's so many of you.
A lot.
يعني كل group كده يبقى to do the work together.
Do you want us now to do it, or?
Can we do that now so that we then don't
Okay.
Depression.
Some people might be more susceptible.
Some people are more susceptible, but by the time you reach 66, my age, you would have probably passed through a depression. Okay, so depression has no favorites. It will affect everyone at some stage of their lives. Okay, so this is why it is good if we know what to do and how to help others and help ourselves should we ever fall into depression. Now, it varies in degrees, and it varies from one person to another, and with the same person, it varies different times. Okay? Now, depression is, it's said statistically, it's the commonest disease in the West. Depression and anxiety are the commonest diseases in the West. Far more than heart problems, far more than cancer, far more than diabetes, far more than anything else. Okay? And mental health now is affecting even children. Yani there was a time when we would never talk about depression with children and teenagers, but now it's becoming more and more common. And there are lots of theories about it. Okay, but there are certain particular personalities that are more prone to getting quite severe depression. All right? And we will show a little bit why that happens. Now I'm going to give you sheets, thinking arrow sheets. I'm not quite sure I have enough. But I put them with here. Okay.
Bassma, you can ask a question, right?
Sure.
I don't know, just to clarify for me. You said that depression is a disease, but sometimes I feel just low and we call it depression. And this is what we pass through. So
This is not
because some
depression.
people are confused. Yeah.
No.
Because all of us we go through these stages of feeling low for a certain
Very
period.
good point. I was going to say it afterwards,
Yeah.
but
Oh, thank you.
no,
Sorry.
I'll say it now. Guys, all of us have times where we feel a bit. All of us have times when we feel a bit sad or a bit low. Yeah? But that is not depression. To say depression, like if you go to your GP and you say, I'm depressed, he will ask you certain questions, He'll ask you certain questions to check whether this is depression or not. Because not everyone who is sad has depression. Okay? Say I've lost my dad. Would I be sad? I lost my dad, by the way. Would I be sad?
Yes.
I would be sad. This is grief. Yeah? There's a reason for it. And it's understandable that there will be a little bit of time feeling a bit low because I've lost my dad and I was very close to him. Okay? But if that lasts for 2 years, then there is something wrong with me. Okay? If I failed an exam, I mean, how many of us, if we fail an exam, would feel over the moon, be very happy? Not many, yeah? You would be unhappy. But if that carries on for 6 months, you are still mourning the exam that you failed, then there's something wrong with it. Okay? So we all pass through periods when we are a bit low. That's normal. Okay? Women have more of those periods, by the way. Okay? We women have more of low mood. We call it low mood. So there's a difference between low mood and depression. All right? If it lasts continuously for 2 weeks, probably your GP will say that you have depression. Continuous unhappiness with other symptoms which I'll talk about. Okay? But now let us focus on something we call thinking errors. All of us have thinking errors. Okay? In psychology speak, it's called cognitive biases. Okay? It's the way our mind takes a thought and goes wrong. Okay? All of us have thinking errors, but all of us have them in various degrees. And some people have them more than others. And if you have them more than others, you are more likely to suffer certain conditions. Okay? And as I'm going, you yourselves will understand. Now I've distributed the sheets. If you don't have one, maybe you will photocopy them afterwards. Okay. And what I'd like you to do is, when you go home, please sit down and think, what are your thinking errors? Okay? If you get to know your thinking errors, you will be able to help yourself. Right? Now, as I go along, probably some of you will say, oh, I've got them all. No, you don't. But you might think so. So the way you know whether you actually have them or not is you ask a few of your faithful friends. Yani friends who will feel okay to tell you, yes, this is what you do, or no, you don't do that. Okay? Am I clear so far? Okay. Now, some people focus on the negative and discount the positive. I'll give you an example. So I've gone on holiday, I had a lovely time, but going on holiday, I was stuck in the airport for 3 hours. So when I come back, you tell me, how was your holiday? I tell you, oh, I was stuck in the airport for 3 hours, and I forget all the good holidays, the good time that I've had, okay? So this is, now obviously I'm exaggerating, but just for you to get the idea. So some people focus on the negative. Like I went on holiday and did something to my finger, so if I focus on that, then I'm focusing on the negative. Now some people also discount the positive. So anything positive, they don't see it. They discount it. Okay? So can you see what that will lead to? Will it make you a happy person? No. You're always seeing what is missing, what is not there. Magnification is when you start exaggerating things. And following on from it, we have catastrophizing. Okay? So I sometimes get someone who comes and says, oh, today, the day was a disaster. And I always say the same thing to patients who come and tell me the day was a disaster. So it's like you've been in Afghanistan, or you've been in somewhere where there has been a disaster, and then they start talking to themselves and finding actually it's not a disaster. Because for you to say it's a disaster, you have to have been in a disaster. But if you say that today was a disaster, why? What have you gone through? Okay? So you see people focus on the negative, then they start magnifying things, making a mountain out of a molehill, and then catastrophizing. It's a disaster. What I'm going through is a disaster. No one else can understand me. Make it very big. Minimizing is when I minimize anything good in my life. So you have a talent, and Auntie Afaf tells me, oh, you're good at some, whatever. I tell her, no, everyone does it. But really, no, it's not that everyone does it. This is a talent that you have, but you cannot see the good that you have. You make it very little. Can you see the progression? Yeah? It's progressive. Then we go to another line, which is all or nothing, no middle ground. There are the people who have it's all or nothing. No middle ground. It's either everyone loves me or no one loves me. Some people have too many rules in their life. I have to do this. I have to go there. Obviously, it's good to have some principles. But sometimes those principles break you. Okay? Like if you're very tired, take for example a mother. Mother, she's got a new baby, and she says, I must do all the cleaning. No, you don't. Who said you must? Okay? If it's a rule that you have set for yourself, you can sometimes break it if you are feeling under the weather. Because if you don't, you will actually break. Okay, and I've seen so many people who, because of rules that they have made, do actually get breakdowns. Now, if it's not the law of the land or the law of God, you can break the rules. Yeah, it's okay. Labeling is when you label others or you label yourself. Like if you say, I'm stupid. Okay? I'm stupid, I don't understand. Okay? Now, labeling is a very powerful thinking error, very powerful. And we've done lots of research on that, especially with children. Like if you keep telling a child, you're stupid, or you're bad, or you're naughty, that child will actually become what you are labeling him. And from it follows fortune telling. So you tell a child, you're naughty. What will happen to that child? If I constantly tell a child, you're naughty, you're naughty, you're naughty, you're bad, you're a bad boy, or you're a bad girl. It's because I still have sons, so this is why I always say boy. But if you keep telling someone something, then what happens is they fulfill the prophecy you are saying over them. Okay? These are, by the way, very powerful thinking errors, very powerful. Okay? Yani sometimes we have caused the problems to our children by the way we have treated them. Now, obviously, you don't have children yet. But I'm just telling you so that whenever you do have children, you don't do that mistake. Mind reading. This is something that women are very good at. Okay? Especially when we're married. Okay? Anyone here married? Okay. So yeah, so we think we can read our husband's minds. Yes, we can read a little bit, not that we can read their minds, but because as we get to know them, we know what will be the next step, okay? But no one can read anyone's mind, okay? Not even the best psychologist, psychotherapist in the world, okay? You can never read anyone's mind unless the person tells you, okay? Yes, we can guess what they're going to say, okay? But don't think you can read their mind. Emotional reasoning is if I start treating people according to how they make me feel, okay? So Ihab upset me, so then I hate Ihab, okay? Or I can pick on Ihab because there's a lot of history. Okay, so the way you treat people and the way you interact with people is based not on facts, but on how they make you feel, on emotions. And obviously emotions come and go, okay? And sometimes those people themselves are in an emotional state. So don't base your relationships on emotions. Personalization, I think almost all of us at a certain level, is when I take things, any criticism personally. So Mina tells me something, makes a comment, criticizes me, says, "Auntie, what a rubbish talk." Then I take it very personally and I get really upset. And I can't let go of that. Now, all of us don't like criticism. Anyone here likes criticism? Anyone? No, no one likes criticism. But some people, the criticism they take, they don't like to learn anything from it. What happens is they take it very personally and they are stuck with that criticism. That especially might affect you at work. Okay? So say your boss or a colleague criticizing something you're doing, and then you just feel very bad. And it stays in your mind. Blame. When did blame start?
In the garden.
Huh?
In the garden.
In the garden. In the garden. In the Garden of Eden. Who started the blame?
Adam.
Adam. Adam started the blame. Who did he blame?
No, God.
He
And
blamed God. He said,
and
the
God.
woman you gave me. Okay? And since then, yeah, he blamed God. And since then, Adam has been blaming God and Eve and everyone else. Yeah, actually, statistically, now, obviously, these are statistics. There can be, and I don't want to stereotype. Most men blame others. Most women blame themselves. Okay? Now, it's not right to blame others. It's not right to blame yourself. You should take the blame if you have done something wrong. But some people take blame that is not theirs. Okay? And some people blame others all the time. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. Okay? But don't blame others or don't blame yourself when it's not your fault. Generalization. That's an easy one when you generalize. So I can say, oh, my husband is sitting over there, so I can say he never brings me flowers. Obviously, never is wrong because at least once he got me flowers. He got me more than that, but I'm just okay? So generalization is something we do, all right? You can do it in a jokey way, but sometimes it becomes just a pattern. So you can say, no one loves me. No one cares for me. You know, when we were saying about the isolation and loneliness, when you're depressed, you start thinking like, no one really cares about me. No one calls me. No one from church checks whether I'm all right or not. Although there must have been somebody who asked you, how are you, and so on. But you generalize, because this is the frame of mind that you're in. Arbitrary inference is when I take a small incident and build a whole story or scenario around it. So I go to work, I go into the staff room, I say hi, good morning. One person doesn't answer, and I say, oh, it's because she doesn't like me. This person doesn't like me. Really, she could be, maybe she hasn't heard me, maybe she has a problem herself, there's something worrying her. But what I did is I took a small incident, a small action, and built the whole story around it. And I carry on with the day the same way. Okay? I'm just giving you examples. What I want you to do now is, in 2 minutes, with yourself, start thinking, what of those do I do a lot? Yeah, you do all of them. I can offer you a free session. But session 2 you will pay. Okay, just take a minute. Now, you might very easily think that you do them all, okay? And we all do them all at some stage. But there are some things, guys, before you start thinking that you have all the problems in the world, before you start feeling depressed, okay? You don't have all those thinking errors all the time. Yeah, all the time. Otherwise, I'll be making a lot of money out of you guys. Yeah. You can all give your names to Rehab if you want a session.
I'll have to take a cut.
The main thing is that you discover that you do have a thinking error, okay? Because we all have thinking errors. And the way we see a thinking error is, so you're starting from this point, and the thinking error makes you, instead of going in a straight line, take a little angle. So you reach a completely different result than if you had gone down a straight line. That's what the thinking error is. So instead of going down, if I take a small angle, I reach a different point. So I reach a different result. And this is why we have problems in relationships and, well, mental health problems. They all start with how we think. This doesn't mean depression is not a disease. It is a disease, but it's very linked to how you think. So you can be prone, someone who is prone to getting a deeper depression than somebody else. Okay? So if I'm somebody who focuses on the negative, magnifies situations, catastrophizes, does arbitrary inference a lot, which way am I taking? I'm going towards having mental health issues, okay? And also for me to come back, I have to start looking at my thinking. So while yes, it is a disease, but I have to look at my thinking. So it's different than diabetes. With diabetes, if I have diabetes, I take medicine and I adjust my food, and that's it. Although, even with diabetes, I have to look at the way I think about things, how I approach life as a whole. So in a way, looking at your thinking errors will help you with whatever disease, whatever illness, whatever thing that faces you in life. Okay? So if I were you, I would make sure I go through this list and think about it. At the beginning, it will take you a bit of time, but as time goes by, straight away, if you're doing one of those, you will straight away know that you are doing it, and you will tell yourself, hey, stop. Okay? Yes.
So in comparison of like mental health to physical health, would you say these are like risk factors? So sometimes if left untreated, it's kind of like having a very high salt diet. You're going to have hypertension, you're going to have heart disease, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you have them and you don't keep them in check, they are risk factors. Just as you have risk factors for heart disease, these are risk factors for mental health, mental ill health. Okay? This is why also if you have brothers, sisters, younger children, it's good to help them make sure that those are kept under check. Now obviously there are certain times in our lives, all of us, that we go through periods where
Think wrong.
those
Yeah,
happen.
it depends on circumstances.
Yes, on circumstances.
Yeah, because it means that not always with this risk factor I'm going to get depressed, but as you said, liable to be, but because sometimes some people will be worried, oh my God, I got this, so I'm going to get depressed. Not everyone will be
Absolutely.
depressed. Yeah.
And this is why we started with the Bible verse.
Yeah, that's good.
You have a God of all comfort. Okay? Yes? So we are not looking at, thinking errors away from God. Yeah? We are thinking about thinking errors and we know that we have the mind of Christ. In fact, it was the reading in the Pauline epistle today, in liturgy. But we have the mind of Christ. Okay? So, this is psychology, but we have something far bigger than psychology. Okay? So once you know what you have, come in humility to God and say, Lord, that's what I do. Can you help me? Okay? And that's why we started with the verse, and obviously we will finish with the verse. And I hope you do read it many times. Okay? Khalas? Thinking errors? طبعا some also thinking errors will lead to you having anxiety. If I have too many shoulds in my life and I don't do them, I'll become very anxious. So who gets depression? Everyone. Women seem to get depression more, but it's not that men don't get depression. It's just the way we show it is different. And it's easier for women to say, I have depression, and to go to the doctor to seek help, or to seek help from friends. It's more difficult for men to say, I have depression. And this is why they wait until it is actually quite serious. Okay? We find that also when people commit suicide, which is something, 15% of those who have depression do try to commit suicide. You find that men, when they commit suicide, they make sure that they do commit suicide. Whereas women,
Cry for help.
it's a cry for help. Whereas when men try to commit suicide, they make sure that there's no one around to save them. So this is a difference between men and women. Also, women will go to their doctor saying, I have depression. But men will go with physical ailments. But as the doctor starts looking into it, you find that actually it is depression. Okay? So it is harder for men to say that they are depressed. But I think that the newer generation might be a bit different. I don't know, I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, so symptoms of depression. We have psychological symptoms, we have physical symptoms, and we have social symptoms. Okay? Actually, guys, you've said quite a lot, but I'd like you now in your groups as well to think, what are the psychological symptoms, some physical symptoms, and social symptoms, okay, in your groups.
I think you are right, لأن groups كبيرة I told you.
Guys, just pause just for a sec, just a bit of an aside. I like to embarrass Auntie V a lot. So who in this room could have possibly written a book with a page every day, 365 days of love letter to her distant love of her life and get it published? So Auntie Bassma is a published author, and not just of deep books that are textbooks, but of love as well. So well done, Auntie. Look it up on Amazon if you doubt. Bassma Mikhail.
Don't look anything up now, just focus. Now, the thing about depression is very pervasive. It affects everything about you. This is why it's quite serious. So it's not just the psychological symptoms. You also get physical symptoms. And obviously, because of all this, you have social symptoms. So what are the psychological symptoms? As we said, it's not just, I'm feeling low today. It's continuous, okay? Continuous, for at least 2 weeks. And you can't find the reason. Like, if I'm feeling low because I failed an exam or I've lost it year 1, there is a reason, okay? But if there is no reason, it's just out of the blue, And we say that depression creeps on you, okay? So you're okay, you start feeling a bit low, and then it comes. It's not something which comes suddenly, it creeps on you. Feeling hopeless and helpless. And actually the feeling of hopelessness is what pushes people to commit suicide, because they feel that there is nothing, I have nothing. Having a low self-esteem. When you are feeling low, you start feeling bad about yourself. Feeling tearful, feeling guilt-ridden, particularly guilt-ridden if you are within a church community. Because you think like everyone is happy and I have to be happy. So you start feeling like there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't have enough faith. Okay? So this is a bad state to be in. So this is why we need to be aware of people around us and try to comfort people. Sometimes you can feel irritable and intolerant of others. This is more common in men than in women, but women can also be intolerant and having no motivation or interest in things, finding it difficult to make decisions. This is why we tell people, if you have depression, don't make decisions, because sometimes people with depression, they take very big decisions, like they leave a job. I've known also some who have left very good marriages in a period of depression, okay? So when you are depressed, this is not the time to make any big decisions, okay? Not getting any enjoyment out of life, feeling anxious or worried, and I'd like to come back to this one again, having suicidal thoughts of harming yourself. Now, which comes first, anxiety or depression? Which comes first, anxiety or depression? You can be someone who is anxious, and then if your anxiety is not relieved, you will become depressed. Or you can be someone who has depression and it leads to anxiety. So anxiety and depression are like chicken and egg, okay? But quite a lot of people have anxiety, and because they don't deal with it, they then have depression. So their depression, if they go to the GP, and all that the GP does is gives them an antidepressant, that will not relieve their depression, because their depression originally started as an anxiety. Okay? So sometimes you have people who do not respond to medication because the cause of the depression was anxiety. And the answer is not by medication. The answer is helping the anxiety. Okay? So it is very important that you know which came first. And this is where talking to someone helps. Physical symptoms. One of the very common things is tired all the time. When you feel you're just tired all the time. Now, at a certain age, you will feel tired all the time. Or if you have grandchildren, you can feel tired all the time. But if you're tired all the time and there is no reason, then that can be it. Moving or speaking more slowly than usual, changes in appetite or weight, usually it decreases. Now, when someone comes to me and is losing weight and has depression, I get very worried. Because that person no longer can comfort eat. It means this person no longer finds comfort in food. Okay? So that's a very worrying sign. But if somebody has depression and is putting on weight, it's not that that's okay, but it means that this person has found comfort in something. Okay? Because this person can still comfort eat. You know comfort eating? Do you comfort eat? Comfort eat. Okay, then you're all okay. Okay? But can you see the point I'm making? Because this is a very important point. Okay? If someone has depression and starts losing weight, okay, then food no longer has comfort. Okay, so it's quite simple. Forget about the masturbation. I'm not going to answer that. unexplained aches and pains, lack of energy, low sex drive, loss of libido. This is quite common with married people. Disturbed sleep, either sleeping a lot or having insomnia. So sometimes they sleep until midday and then at night they can't sleep. They have insomnia. Okay? So those are the physical symptoms. Obviously you can have more than those, but I've just said the salient ones. Social symptoms, avoiding contact with friends and taking part in fewer social activities, and you start finding that your circle starts diminishing. And that itself increases the depression. So if you are somebody who have started stopping the activities, say somebody used to do service and starts not serving, that will increase the depression. Okay? So you shouldn't do that. Neglecting hobbies and interests, having difficulty in your home, work, or family life. So you find that their social life starts diminishing. Okay? We call it ever decreasing circles. So their circles start becoming less and less. And as the circles start becoming less, they start telling themselves, no one loves me. It's not that no one loves them, but they have stopped contacting people. So if I stop coming to church, then I will tell myself no one loves me. So then I will withdraw from people. Okay? Any questions in the symptoms? Yes?
How do you explain the term high-functioning depression?
That's a good one. There are people who are able to function, okay, because they are extremely intelligent usually. So when they come down a bit, it's still functioning. Okay, so they are not, they haven't reached the bottom of people yet.
But they can still have all these.
They will still have them, but they are used to functioning at a very high level. You can sometimes also get it with manic depression, but it wouldn't be high functioning depression. But they're usually highly intelligent, so they are able to also hide many of those symptoms.
Bassma.
Yes?
So we're talking about these symptoms. I guess it's quite an arbitrary question, but if you were to have depression, would you experience all these or some of these? Could you have depression without social symptoms, or
Yes?
how does it work?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's depression is different. Okay? So it depends. Now, some people, as your name, what's your name?
Monica.
As Monica said, there is, functioning depression. There are many people with depression who are going around and they are still able to function and still do a lot of things. But inside them, the sadness is inside. They are able to carry on doing a lot of things, but there is a gap inside. In fact, quite a few people will do that. Yes?
Social symptoms, you said that people go through times when they just don't want to be around huge groups of people. What if you go through a phase like that, but then you come back and you're like, fine, I'm happy with a group of people, but it's an ongoing cycle? Would that be classified as depression? Because you said it could be, if it's a long period, that's when the doctors will say, okay, you're depressed. But what if it's like short periods, but happens often?
These are mood swings or mood things, okay? So I wouldn't call them depression in the sense of that deep thing. But if it persists and I don't tackle the reasons that it happens, it could then become set depression, okay? So it is important that if I notice that I do that, okay, I notice what triggers it, okay? Because sometimes you need to find what was the trigger, okay? So if I notice the trigger, you see, all of us have ups and downs. Yeah? All of life is ups and downs. Now some people have very high ups and very low downs. And some of us have, it's like a plateau. Okay? You want your life to be more of a plateau. Okay? Because the very high ups and the very low downs will affect relationships. Okay? So find what is the trigger that makes me go down. Okay? All of us, we can find the triggers. This is why it just needs a little bit of looking. Okay, what happened before the time when I started feeling I want to be on my own? Okay? Yes.
So there's some diseases like type 2 diabetes that are curable if you maintain and you take care of it. Is this disease curable?
Yes. Depression is totally curable. Of course. Depression is totally curable. And not all depression becomes, you see, depression is a scale, is on a scale. You can have low, you can have, or mild, there's moderate, and there's severe. Now, the mild and the moderate, normally you don't even need to take medication. Okay? You don't take medications just by talk therapy. Okay? But it's the severe that you will need to take medication to make sure that you do not do something silly, because people do silly things sometimes in the depth of their depression. Okay? So depression, as I said, is a scale. Not all of us reach the point where we feel hopeless. And, but sometimes I just feel I don't want to be with anyone. And then you stop all your relationships, you stop all your activities, and this is where it can become quite serious. Now, as I said at the beginning, there's a difference between grief and depression. Okay? So not everyone who is feeling a bit sad or feeling a bit low means that this person has depression. Okay? Yeah? So if you're feeling a bit low now, probably it's because of me. But if you're feeling a bit low, it doesn't mean you have depression. But there are also something called depressive personalities. There are some people who are more on the negative side. Okay? You feel them, you sit with them and you feel that they are not bubbly, the life and soul of the party. Okay? Those are not people with depression, it's just their personality. Okay? So not every case is depression. Fine. What about treatments? Now, I don't want to bore you with a lot of names of medicines and so on, but most of the cases will respond to either the talk therapies or medication, or talk therapies and medication. Obviously, being me, I prefer talk therapies, but some people need a combination. So some medication and some talk therapy. The problem with medication is sometimes you go on it. If you go on medication without addressing what was the original problem in your thinking, what will happen is you will carry on medication for a long time. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't stay on medicines for a long time. Okay? So it is important that if you are given medicines, that you also speak to somebody, okay, so that you can sort out the problems that led to your depression. Okay? Now, if cases don't respond, there are brain stimulation therapies. There's also light therapy for the people who have SAD, the seasonal affective disorder. There are some people who, when winter comes, it's dark, gloomy, then they start feeling depressed. Okay? For them, they get light therapy. Or they go on holiday maybe to the south of France or something for 3 months. But then they will come back depressed because they've lost all their money. So stick to light therapy. Yeah. Now, there are lots of alternative therapies that people talk about, like St. John's wort and things like that. I wouldn't even bother to spend any money on it. It's completely useless. In fact, in America, it's not, in the United States, it's not even given, they don't have a license. Whereas here you can buy St. John's wort and things like that. So forget about this one, but I just thought some of you might know something about it. Any questions here? I guess. Very good question. Now, some diseases cause depression, but if you have any chronic pain, any chronic illness, it can be associated with depression, okay? And many diseases when people have them for a long time, then they become depressed. But if you treat the disease, then the depression usually lifts. But sometimes when it doesn't lift, then we do take some medication. But as I said, if you look at the thinking errors, if you look at those, then you can start handling any disease you have in a better way. Okay? Okay, some tips. Now, so say somebody has depression, they've gone for medication and everything, or talk therapy. There's just a few things that people need to do. Try to get physical activity, even just 30 minutes of a day of walking or some exercise. Normally when people become depressed, they stop all physical activity. So one of the things we tell them to do is, no, please walk 30 minutes every day, okay? Because you need to start making yourself more active. Try also to maintain regular bedtime and wake-up time. So to start making regular all the things that have become irregular. Also meal times. Any big job that you are doing, do it in small bits, okay? Because if you look at it as a whole, like if I have to clean the whole house, I might freak out. But if I say, okay, I'm only going to clean a room a day, then it will be easier. So we try and divide for them the tasks that they have to do. We also try to connect people. We tell them to carry on. You know, they need to be with people and not decrease their social circles. Not take any important decisions. Obviously, not getting married or divorced. And they can check with others before they make all those big decisions if they are feeling depressed. And definitely it goes without saying, avoid alcohol, because alcohol is a depressant. So if you are taking, and I've seen so many people, they are taking antidepressants and drinking. It's a no-brainer. If you are on antidepressants, or if you have depression, or you are someone who is liable to get depression, avoid alcohol. That's a very big depressant. And obviously avoid other things that are not prescribed.
I like what you put because actually I don't know. If you ask everyone will tell I'm depressed. I got depression, which is not the depression they are talking about. So what you wrote down here is fantastic for all of us to use it without medication, without reaching the. Once I feel low, I push myself for physical activity. Once I feel low, I look at my eating, my lifestyle. So all the steps you put it even without medication to start with before leaving myself. Because if you ask everyone,
yes,
I think everyone is thinking now, I'm depressed. No, just we need to use your tips for everyday life.
absolutely.
Not just because physical activity is amazing in changing the mood,
Yes.
even the way we eat. And as you said, if I feel down, I don't have to push myself for many tasks to break the tasks into small tasks. Is brilliant advice you are giving us. Because sometimes when I put in my head, oh, I have to do this and that, my God.
Yes.
So thank you, it's very nice advice.
Well, I think if you forget everything I've said, remember 2 slides. The thinking errors and this. And most of you actually are not depressed. We all go, as I said, ups and downs.
Yeah.
This is the reality of life. This is life. Life is ups and downs. But what you try to do is to try to keep the up for a lot longer and the down for a lot shorter. Let me just draw it to you to explain to you what I mean. All of us are like that. Or like that. When you take antidepressants make you like that. Why? Antidepressants take away the fun of life. You can't enjoy life when you are on an antidepressant. But it's meant for that, so that you don't go dip down. The reason they give antidepressants is so that you don't go down to the point where you become hopeless and you say, I'll take my life. Okay? So when you are on antidepressants, people have a flat mood, flat. They never experience joy. There's no joy.
No joy, no sadness.
There's no joy.
No emotion.
But there is the depth of sadness. Although I've seen people on antidepressants who have still committed suicide. But it was very deep. Okay?
Can you show us, can you share this slide?
Sorry. Yeah. Okay? People are like that. And some people have a longer period of being happy. Okay? And rather than say happy, joyful. Okay? Joy.
Joy.
Let me use joy, the word joy instead of happy.
I like the verse you started with.
Yes.
That I think this is a key for if we want to be practical actually and be stable.
Yes.
To start with that, to find our comfort in the Lord, because when you look at all the error of our thinking, I think if we have relationship with the Lord, the way I'm thinking is going to be different. I'm going to see the people with His eyes. So never I see someone, always I see the good thing in you. If I got a relationship with the Lord, always I trust what He does. So never I be worried, and always I be grateful. Whatever I have, I'm grateful to Him, because I trust what happened with me is for my best. So I believe the key of joy is my relationship with the Lord. But as long as I'm away, believe me, whatever I use, whatever I do, still I'm not satisfied, still I'm worried and anxious, and most of the time I'll be low. But if I am walking with Him, whatever happening, I know I'm okay, because the one who is looking after me is the Lord, who is in control, who loves me, who cares about me. If this one is there and died for me, why should I worry? I know my situation now is not fantastic, but I know He got a plan for me. And His plan for me is always for the best. So this will correct my thinking, as Auntie Bassma said, in the right way. But if there is no connection with Him, believe me, everything is going to be difficult. Even if today I am okay, tomorrow I go back again. So if you want, as she said, to be stable, know whom you should hold on. It's not easy, but as she said, we ask Him for help. She said that in her talking, we ask Him for help. It's difficult for me with my circumstance, but please help me. Help me to think like You. Help me to trust in You. Increase my faith. And once you start that, your life will be different. Always you'll be joyful. If you want to believe me, see the people who really loves God and have relationship with Him, always you find them really happy from their heart. All of us who are worried and anxious because the source, as she said at the beginning, was fantastic. The source of comfort is not there.
Well, if you carry on with the verses from 2 Corinthians 1, as we read, we find that actually St. Paul himself had a period of depression. Now, at that time, when St. Paul was feeling depressed, because he says, we do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, of our trouble which came to us in Asia, that we were burdened beyond measure, above strength, so that we despaired even of life. So here is someone who came to the point where he was hopeless. Did he get any medication? No. Did he get any talk therapy? No. But who comforted him? God. Okay? So, yes, of course, I have to say all these things as a psychologist.
No, they are important. Actually, all of them, they are important.
Yes,
All of them.
okay. But we see that St. Paul reached a point where he despaired even of life. So he reached a point where he was so hopeless. But then he says, yes, we had the sentence of death. But thanks be to God who delivered us from so great a thing. So God is the one who comforts, and He comforts me so that I comfort you, with the comfort that he gave us. Okay? And just about the thinking errors, if you go to Romans 12, this is the source of that we use. That the guy who talked about these things, he didn't say it was from Romans 12, but it is from Romans 12. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed. So how do I transform myself? How do I change the way I think? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So as I think, change the way I think to be according to the will of God, I will find that I will change my thinking errors. Okay? So there is a way of changing our thinking errors. It's not that I have a thinking error, that's it, I'm stuck. We are redeemed. We are not people who say, that's it, this is who I am. I am constantly changing. If I ask him, he will change me. And I will try, and he will change me. Because this is his promise. Okay? So be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So I'm going to write the verse as well, so you can all have it, or maybe if you have, or Mina will send it to you. It's Romans 12. Verse 2. Okay. So thank you all very much, and I think that's it. If you have any questions. Yes, certainly help him with the tips. Make sure that he follows them. Okay? Check with him also if he has help from a medical profession. And just make sure that he tries to isolate himself if he allows it. Okay? Because what happens is people isolate themselves. And then they start thinking that it's okay and so on. Not let them isolate themselves. Because isolation will actually lead them to deeper depression. Okay?
The thinking errors that you mentioned, since we were joking about them, does that mean someone has to have those thinking errors, all of them at all times? Or do people like snap in and out of some of them throughout their lives?
They snap in and out of them throughout their lives. I've never seen anyone who had them all.
So how would, if, as a psychologist, if you see someone, how would you say, because I feel like in certain situations each of us can have some of them.
Yeah.
How, is it a scale of how bad it is or how long it is or how much they are?
It's a scale. Always, like when someone tells me I've got this, because we always go through the thinking errors. Okay? So I always tell them, okay, give me an example. So they have to give me an example. And then I tell them, so how often does this example happen? Okay? Because it could have been just once. You know, all of us have once focused on something negative. Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, we've all done it. You know, like I told you how. Bad coffee. You know. But I'm very specific about coffee, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think it's just, people will be asked about thinking errors.
I think errors, we can all help with it. I don't think you should go to a therapist to help you with thinking errors. But you can always call me. But obviously, if you want to go to a therapist to help you with thinking errors,
Not only about that thinking error, about the depression.
depression. I think if you feel that it's really affecting your life, okay? Once it's affecting your life, like maybe it's making you not do your job well, okay? Affecting your relationships. Like say you're married and it's affecting your relationship, or you are in a relationship and it's not working because of that, then it is good to ask someone. Also, I don't know if Abuna comes here often. Do you have a father of confession? It is always good to go and chat and say, you know,
No, he's not a psychologist.
trust me, you know, they do know more than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a psychologist, but I go to my father of confession, and once I had some, and my father of confession is Abuna Tumas. Yes, he's not a psychologist, and I'm the psychologist, but I found that he has more wisdom than me. I'm older than him, but he's my father. So sometimes chatting to somebody else before you go, because if you go to your GP, the first thing you'll get is an antidepressant. I'm just trying to spare you that.
Sorry guys, we've got 2 questions over here and maybe a third, but we need to wrap up shortly after.
I'm happy to wrap up and get you
No.
coffee.
Proper coffee? Lydia. Oh, sorry. No, go for it.
I was going to, if you could elaborate a little bit about labeling when parents label children.
Yes.
Like, yes, telling them this and that. How can it be developed? Or how can it
Well, first of all, if I tell a child, oh, you're stupid,
yeah.
okay, I'm conferring to him that he is stupid, that it's his brain. Whereas all that's happened is he's just done a silly thing. So instead of saying you're stupid, I can say you've done a stupid thing, or you've done a silly thing, or this was not very good, okay? So not using big labels for the child.
So does it go into depression and then affect that person's life?
Well, it's not just about depression, but it makes the child believe those things you're saying about him. It's like you're saying, as if you're saying a prophecy over his head.
Okay. It may not be.
Yes. Okay. But still, it's we try not to label children. Yes. Only good.
I really like to talk, but I think I just wanted to get your idea about something. So with the shoulds, musts, have tos, and oughts, obviously within the church there are certain things like a focus more on repentance and sin at times, or the kind of or kind of a focus on if you love God or you trust God, you should be joyful always. How can we balance it with the reality that as humans we have a full range of emotions? As Christ, who was perfect, he had times when he wept, times when he was angry, times of difficulty, times of joy. How can we as a church give a more balanced perspective so that people who are going through a tough time don't think it's a spiritual thing linked to their relationship with God, when it may or may not be. Sometimes it might be, but a lot of the time it could be something else.
Absolutely. I said this point about the psychological symptoms, that sometimes as Christians we feel more guilt-ridden because everyone in church is happy, or I'm meant to look happy, but I am not. So it makes people within a church community or within any faith community feel very bad because they're meant to be happy and they are not.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that we all go through phases, and it's okay to go through a phase, and it's okay to be unhappy.
But as well as that,
And I shouldn't try to look happy just to appease others, just to please others.
as
No, for sure, to say the truth. Obviously, so somebody comes and says, oh, how are you, Lydia? Most of us say, thank God I'm okay. Yeah? Because this is how it is. But there have to be a small circle around you that you can be honest with. Okay? So obviously you won't say it to absolutely everyone in the church. Okay? But there has to be a circle around you where you tell them, actually I'm feeling very bad, I'm feeling lousy today. I barely could get out of bed. And I feel like crying. So there has to be a group that you can do that with. Otherwise, we're all hypocrites. We're all fake. Yeah? And as I said at the beginning, we will all, absolutely everyone will get a period when they will have depression. I had depression once when I had my second son, when I first came to this country. I didn't take medication for it. I didn't need, but I was very depressed. I was crying all the time, just crying. This was postnatal depression. And another time when I was not very well, and I was just so unhappy. so unhappy. Unhappy as in depressed, okay, where you want to die. Okay, so this happens, but I can't tell absolutely everyone. Okay, so when people would say yes, I'm okay, but there has to be a few people that you can say, you know what, I'm not okay. Right? So it is okay to say I am not okay. In fact, you have to. Otherwise, you are not helping those who cannot say it. Okay? Because if they feel that we're all very strong and we're always happy, so you will not be able to comfort. And if St. Paul himself had a period of depression, Jeremiah was constantly crying, then who are we to be always joyous? Yeah? But we come back and he picks us up. And he's given us medication and he's given us doctors to help us. There's a reason why God gave us doctors.
Can we have one last question from Jesse? Jesse?
More of a comment actually, like to that point, is a book in the Bible called Lamentation, which is just 5 chapters of grief.
Yes.
So if it's in the Bible, it has to supersede culture. There's a lot of cultures I've noticed. I don't know if it's the same in Egyptian churches or Arab churches, definitely West African churches where even outside of it, cultures I should say, if you talk about something that's wrong with you, it's almost like you're giving it life. It's like a misinterpretation or like a massive wide exaggeration of what it says in the power of the tongue is life and death. And that's more of affecting others and not about this supernatural bringing to life everything that's something that's wrong with you. So yeah, I think there's a difference between happiness as well and joy, because happiness happens, but joy is something that's permanent. But it doesn't mean you're going to be happy all the time. It's more of a deeper comfort that we have in God. Yeah.
And you can have depression and have the joy of the Lord in your heart. The two are not against each other. Okay? So definitely.
Guys, just one tiny thing in what you mentioned, Lydia. Our church does focus on repentance, but the verse just before Auntie Bassma's verse 2 of Romans 12, so verse 2 says, do not conform any longer, but be transformed by the... Verse 1 says, now therefore there is... there's another verse, sorry, not in Romans 12, I'll remember it in a sec. Now therefore there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. We shouldn't be doing guilt as Christians.
Yes.
Understanding our fault, repenting, yes, but not wallowing in guilt or self-pity. That's something that we need to say that isn't from the Lord, that's from the deceiver, the one who wants to bring us down.
I think all communities everywhere had an issue with depression, feeling that if I say I have depression, it means I'm weak, I'm, less than other people. But I think there is now an understanding that depression is a disease. It happens to everyone. It happens to all classes, all religions, all denominations, everyone. So depression is it's just like diabetes. You can't say I don't have it or I don't get it. And we're living in the West, we're bound to get depression.
Thank you so much, Auntie.